Hi, my name is Anna, and welcome back to another weekly Torah video here in the channel Jóvenes Perinando. In today's video, we are going to be studying chapters 5, 6, and 7 to verse 7 of the book of Exodus, which today's video is titled, Leaving Egypt to Serve the Eternal. Throughout these videos of Torah, it has reminded us of where we have come from and where we are headed, which through Yeshua's delivery, He has given us the freedom to serve the Eternal fully as He asks, without the slavery of the world, with a renewed mind and free from the assimilation of the world. As we have studied the life of the people of Israel, it has helped us to ask ourselves if we have truly been freed from any slavery. And it also reminds us of our commitment to the Creator once we have left modern Egypt, which is this world. We have also seen the importance of keeping ourselves holy, cleaning our garments, and obeying the Father. An example of obedience that we can see here in the book of Exodus is Moses, who was a man who, despite his human weakness, he decided to give his life to the Eternal, fulfilling his call. After so much time, we were able to read, or we were able to see how after so much time he returned to Egypt to be part of the great liberation of the people of Israel that the Almighty was going to do through him. In the previous video, we saw that Moses arrived in Egypt, and before he arrived in Egypt, to talk to Pharaoh, he met up with his brother Aaron in the desert, and there he told him everything that the Eternal had told him, and he also showed him the signs that he had given him. Then they both met up with the elders of the people of Israel, and they believed in them just as the people of Israel believed in them as well. And we read how the people of Israel exalted and bowed before the Eternal. And something that we're going to be able to see in this video is that although yes, the people of Israel were happy because they knew that the Creator had not forgotten of them, but something they didn't know was that them leaving Egypt wasn't going to be something easy. And in the process, something that they would have to learn was that they had to be patient. They would also have to trust in the Eternal and control their emotions. And at the same time, this is something that now in our days, it's something that we have to learn. Because yes, although through the Messiah we have received freedom, but however, we have to suffer affliction in this world. But faith and perseverance are required so that we don't allow ourselves to be overcome by impatience and doubt, but may we remain firm until the return of the Messiah, who has inherited the eternal dwellings to us. To begin with the study of today's video, we're going to start reading verses 1 and 2 of chapter 5. It says, After this presentation to the elders, Moses and Aaron went to see Pharaoh. They told him, We bring you a message from the Eternal, the Elohim of Israel. He says, Let my people go, for they must make a holy pilgrimage out into the wilderness for a religious feast, to worship me there. Is that so? Retorted Pharaoh. And who is the Eternal, that I should listen to him and let Israel go? I don't know the Eternal, and I will not let Israel go. We see here that Moses and Aaron went directly to comply with what they had been commanded, and in a peaceful way they approached Pharaoh. They did not impose anything on him, but peacefully asked him to let Israel go to celebrate the feast to the Eternal. The word for feast in Hebrew is Hag, which is to celebrate a feast, to make a solemn feast, by implication to be joyful. The people of Israel, all they wanted was to go to have an encounter with their Creator, to serve Him, exalt Him, and recognize Him. This feast has nothing to do with the pagan festivities that were celebrated in Egypt and that are currently being celebrated, which aims to please the flesh. But this feast, on the contrary, it was going to be a holy festival or a holy festivity where they rejoice in their mighty. But we read that Pharaoh answers with arrogance, making it clear what was in his heart. And another thing that we can see in these verses is that Pharaoh felt like he was the owner or the Lord of the people of Israel. He believed and he thought that the people of Israel were his property, but as we have read and as we will continue reading, the people of Israel were not Pharaoh's. Continuing with verses 3 to 9, it says, Then they said, The Eternal, or the Elohim of the Hebrews, has met with us. Please let us go on a 3-day journey into the wilderness so we may offer sacrifices to the Eternal our Elohim, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword. But the king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why do you take the people away from their work? Get back to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land are now many, and you make them rest from their burdens. On the same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their foremen, You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks, as in the past. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But the number of bricks that they made in the past you shall impose on them. You shall by no means reduce it, for they are idle. Therefore they cry, Let us go and offer sacrifice to our Elohim. Let heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor at it and pay no regard to lying words. Moses and Aaron tried to reason with Pharaoh, but he was hardened. They had ordered the people of Israel to stop working. They were already preparing to leave Egypt, but they did not know that they had to go through a waiting procedure to leave Egypt. We see how Pharaoh made the work of the Israelites more difficult so that they would be disappointed and no longer listen to Moses, and so that they would forget the idea of leaving Egypt to serve the Eternal. In this story, we find figures of what is happening nowadays. Pharaoh alludes to Satan, who governs modern Egypt, and believers represent the people of the Eternal, who are called to freedom through Yeshua to get out of the slavery of Egypt. The adversary before this call, what he does is the same as a Pharaoh, pressuring and oppressing, putting obstacles to keep us enslaved to this world, whether it is through riches, through doctrines, or the vain entertainment that we see on the internet. And all this is to distract our attention of what really matters. All this so that we doubt and continue under the yoke of slavery. But even if the enemy attacks in this, we may or in this way, we must continue to trust in the Eternal, because the word of Yeshua is true, and just as Yeshua made that storm stop in his days, in the same way it will make us free from the pressure of this world. We must cling with more strength to the Eternal and continue obeying in emunah, or in faith, without separating ourselves, knowing that in due time he will give us complete liberation. But while we go through the process, our task is to prepare ourselves, be firm and consistent, and let the Eternal mold our life like clay in His hands. In 1 Peter 5, verse 6 through 10, it says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of the Eternal, so that at the proper time He may exalt you, casting all your anxieties on Him, because He cares for you. Be sober-minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Resist him, firm in your faith, knowing that the same kinds of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood throughout the world. And after you have suffered a little while, the Eternal of all grace, who has called you to His eternal glory in the Messiah, will Himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you." Here we can see that we have a great promise, knowing that after we suffer for a short time, the Eternal will affirm, strengthen, and establish us. Continuing with verses 10 through 12 of Exodus chapter 5, it says, "So the taskmasters and the foremen of the people went out and said to the people, 'Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and get your straw yourselves wherever you can find it, but your work will not be reduced in the least.' So the people were scattered throughout Egypt's land to gather stubble for straw." We see that Pharaoh increased the work of the people, and it tells us later on that Pharaoh's taskmasters placed foremen of the people of Israel, and since they could not fulfill the heavy burden they put on them, so because of this, then they were beaten for not having completed the work. So they went to Pharaoh and cried, saying, "Why do you treat your servants like this?" And we're going to be able to read this from verses 15 through 19 that says, "Then the foreman of the people of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, 'Why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is given to your servants. Yet they say to us, Make bricks. And behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is in your own people.' But he said, 'You are idle. You are idle. This is why you say, Let us go and sacrifice to the Eternal. Now go and work. No straw will be given to you, but you must still deliver the same number of bricks.' The foremen of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble when they said, 'You shall by no means reduce your number of bricks, your daily task each day.'" Here we see that Pharaoh told them that he was not going to diminish the task and that he was not going to give them peace either, but that everything was going to remain the same. And here we clearly see what it says in 1 Corinthians 2:14. "The natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of Elohim, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned." For Pharaoh, it was a waste of time. It was a waste of time that the people of Israel wanted to serve their Elohim, and this is something that we see in nowadays. And this is something that happens because if a believer wants to put their focus and attention first on obeying the Eternal, then they are considered as a person who does not have value, ignoring that there is nothing better than dealing with our salvation. And although in this world we have responsibilities to fulfill to obtain sustenance, everything we do is as if it were for the Messiah, without forgetting who we are and what we are called to do. As the Messiah himself said in John 6, verse 27. Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him the eternal the Father has set his seal. Later on, we will see that the foremen, when they leave the presence of Pharaoh, we're going to be able to read that they meet Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them. And well, in verse 21 it says, the Eternal look on you and judge, because you have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. We see that the people despaired before the pressure of Pharaoh. They lost the joy of the beginning, the joy that they had at the beginning when they received the news that the Eternal had not forgotten them. They grieved and complained about Moses and Aaron. They thought that they were going to be free quickly, but it was not like that. Certainly, these situations happen to believers because under pressure we can get discouraged, and it makes it difficult for us to move forward when they are oppressing us. Precisely in these moments is when we must remember that the Eternal is faithful and that he will fulfill what he has promised. And even if we have to go through afflictions, we still cannot let despair, affliction, frustration, and sadness dominate us, but rather the opposite. We must strive and strengthen ourselves in our Creator. Keep looking for him, study his word, remember the words of the Messiah, exalt him, give thanks to him, and obey him, knowing that all help comes from him. Like it says in James 1, verse 2-4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness, and let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. We see here that we can see here the exhortation to have patience and not to lose faith, but to strengthen ourselves in our Creator. In the last verses of chapter 5, it says, Then Moses turned to the Eternal and said, O Eternal, why have you done evil to these people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to these people, and you have not delivered your people at all. We see here that Moses did not know how long it would take for the Eternal to free them. He did not understand the magnitude of the hardness of Pharaoh's heart, because it was not that the Eternal was not helping the people, or that the Eternal was not helping them, or that he was not doing what was necessary. But that the thing was that everything was part of his plan, a process they would have to live and go through. And this process, they had to be patient. The Eternal had warned Moses that Pharaoh's heart was going to become hardened to manifest his power before that nation. They had to learn to be patient. Just like us today, it is important to have patience, which is not only to wait, but to maintain a correct attitude in fear, without complaining or reproaching, without assimilating while we wait. As Shaul says in Romans 5, verse 3-5, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not put us to shame, because the Eternal's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. We see here that being patient produces an approved character before the Eternal, similar to our Messiah Yeshua, who likewise in the face of the tribulation he suffered, and not only did he suffer, but he was also humiliated by the people in those times. And it's something that we can see is that although he passed through all of that, he still stood firm and in shalom with the Eternal, waiting only for his help. In chapter 6, it begins like this. Verse 1 says, But the Eternal said to Moses, Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand he will send them out, and with a strong hand he will drive them out of his land. Here we can see that the people still had to wait a little longer to leave Egypt, but they were already going to begin to see signs and wonders that the Eternal, which these signs were going to be that the Eternal was with them to take them or to bring them out of Egypt. Verses 2-7, it says, The Eternal spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Eternal. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as the Eternal Almighty, by my name the Elohim. I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they lived as sojourners. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the people of Israel, whom the Egyptians hold as slaves, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the people of Israel, I am the Eternal, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from slavery to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great acts of judgment. I will take you to be my people, and I will be your Elohim, and you shall know that I am the Eternal, your Elohim, who has brought you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. Here we see that the Eternal refers to the pact he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, alluding to the fact that he had not forgotten them because he is faithful in his word. He also tells them that he would free them from the burdens, and so on. In that same way, he is the one who takes us out of the carcass of this world that oppresses us. When we take the yoke of the Messiah upon us, that implies obeying his teaching and returning to the Eternal through him. The Eternal gives us freedom from oppression. And despite the oppositions, the Father grants us shalom, hope, security, and fulfillment, until he delivers us with a mighty hand from this world and redeems us completely through his Son. In verse 8, it continues saying, I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you for possession. I am the Eternal. We see that the Eternal tells them that he would give them the land of Canaan, and this reminds us of the promise or the promises that we also have, our promised land that is the abode of heaven. The Messiah will take us out of this world and take us to the place that he has prepared for us. That is why we must continue to persevere until the end. We know that just as plagues came to Egypt, they have also been coming to this current world, as it says in Revelations. But if we remain in obedience to the instruction and imitate the obedient faith of our Messiah Yeshua, we will be freed from judgment and kept as good wheat in the barn of the Almighty. Verse 9 says, Moses spoke thus to the people of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. As we can see, they were impatient, desperation was winning over them, credibility problems began, and they began to complain about Moses and Aaron. But sadly, this also happens even in our days, because many humans or many people do not listen to the words of the Messiah and much less obey them, because they prefer to pay attention to what man has to say. They have stopped listening to the voice of the envoy. And they say, some religious people say, to listen to the Messiah, or known as Jesus, but that is a Messiah that is false, and a Messiah that is or that has nothing to do with the real Messiah, who is Yeshua. And well, in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9 through 10, it says, The Eternal is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward you, not wishing that any should perish, but that all should reach repentance. But the day of the Eternal will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it would be exposed. We clearly see that this earth this earth passes by, and at some point it will be destroyed, or it will be finished. And that something that we also see here is that our hope must be in what Yeshua said, in those dwellings that are eternal. From verses 10 through 13 of chapter 6 of Exodus, it says, So the Eternal said to Moses, Go in, tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the people of Israel go out of his land. But Moses said to the Eternal, Behold, the people of Israel have not listened to me. How then shall Pharaoh listen to me? For I am uncircumcised lips. But the Eternal spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them a charge about the people of Israel and about Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt. We see here that Moses didn't feel supported by the people of Israel, and he believed that he wasn't capable of speaking with Pharaoh because it was difficult for him to express himself. It was a difficulty for him because if the people, or if his own people, the people of Israel, did not believe in him and did not support him, then how would Moses be able to convince the king of Egypt to free them? But the Eternal was with him, like always. He had everything under control, and the only thing that Moses had to do here was that he just had to obey the Eternal in everything he commanded him. In the last verses, it talks about the genealogy of Moses and Aaron, where he talks about the descendants of Reuben, Simon, and Levi. We are going to see that it narrates about the parents of Aaron, the children of Korah, who, as we know, as we're gonna know, or we're gonna read about him later on, that Korah was a person, or a person who rebelled himself against the Eternal. We're also going to, we also see in the last verses of chapter 6, that it narrates the children of Aaron, and all these people were part of the descendants of the Levites, who later on in the history of Israel become ministers of the Eternal. From verses 27 through 30 of chapter 6, it narrates how the Eternal calls Moses and Aaron to calls them and reaffirms that they were the ones who were called to carry out this task, despite the fact that Moses recognized that he was not capable to express himself. And we see how the Eternal does not despise him, but on the contrary, he continued to reaffirm his task and put his brother Aaron so that the two of them could carry out this task. Beginning with chapter 7, verses 1 through 2, it says, "And the Eternal said to Moses, 'See, I have made you like Elohim to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron should tell Pharaoh to let the people of Israel go out of his hand.'" We can see here that Elohim gave this designation to Moses to be like Elohim. This does not mean that Moses is like the Eternal. We can actually see that this attribute of Elohim is not only given to the Heavenly Father, but it is also given to men, as it is cited in the Torah. And the men who were not any men could be or could have this designation of being like, or of being Elo, or of being powerful. The type of men who were able to have this power were, or who were able to be called as Elohim, were the judges, the elders of the people of Israel, and Yeshua himself, who were powerful on earth. This was an authority that the Eternal gives, that only the Eternal could give them. We also see that Aaron was going to be given the authority to be a prophet. That is to say that the words were going to be revealed to Moses, and he was going to transmit them to his brother Aaron, who would be the one to speak. This also helps us to deny to deny that lie of the Holy Trinity, because in Bereshit, in the Brit Hadashah, known as the New Testament, there are several verses where it is mentioned that Yeshua is like Elohim. But this does not mean, once again, that Yeshua himself is the Eternal, but rather that he has the designation of mighty, or of powerful. And the Eternal gave all power and authority over everything to the Messiah. And this is what it means to be Elohim. Verses 3 to 7, it says, "But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand on Egypt and bring my hosts, my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Eternal when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from among them." Moses and Aaron did so. They did just as the Eternal commanded them. Now Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. We can see here that the Eternal used these people in a great way, and later on we will be able to see that he continues using them, both of them, Aaron and Moses, and the Eternal clearly confirms everything he was going to do. Great judgments would come over the land of Egypt, but they had to be confident, and they had to be confident and safe, because they would be taken out of their midst. We can see here that it was going to be a long process, a process that was going to bring suffering to the land of Egypt. And well, the more the Pharaoh, we can see here that the more the Pharaoh hardened his heart, the more severe the Eternal would become, and the more judgment he would bring, not only for him, but for all of his nation. In this way, the Eternal would make known his power before this totally idolatrous nation, and his people were going to be separated by him. They would not only be freed from, the people of Israel were not only going to be freed from that oppression that they had, or that they are having in Egypt, but they would also be taught by the Eternal how to serve and honor in the right way. That is the same hope that we have today, to be saved and totally liberated from oppression. But while we wait, we must have patience and get busy preparing for that great day when the husband comes to pick up the bride. This portion brings many teachings for our life of faith about how we should behave in the face of the difficulties or that we're going to go through, and how we should not stop remaining in this conviction that our Messiah will return and give us complete redemption. In 2 Peter chapter 10, verse 11 through 14, it says, "Since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people ought you to be in lives of holiness, waiting for and hastening the coming of the day of Elohim, because of which the heavens will be set on fire and dissolved, and the heavenly bodies will melt as they burn. But according to his promise, we are waiting for new heavens and new earth, in which righteousness dwells. Therefore, beloved, since you are waiting for these, be diligent to be found by him without spot or blemish, and at peace." So let us remain firm and trying diligently to present ourselves approved before the Father, the Eternal Father. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any questions, you can put them down in the comment section down below, or any comments. Thank you, and goodbye.